peace or panic from Kilhoss. Luka is going to get worn into the ground over the season if he doesn't get more help because of his crazy usage rate, or Luka will be fine because he is 23 and in shape, does a large bit of his work in the post, and the Mavs play with one of the slowest paces in the league. This is a fantastic peace or panic, and Luka's usage is something that has received just a ton of attention. They are spot on with the way that the Mavericks play, and of course Luka's post work. The Mavs have the ranked dead last in average, or I guess you could say that like first if you want to be slow, but they are dead last in average offensive possession time. 15.7 seconds is their average offensive possession. That is 30th, and 29th is Philly, in case anybody cares. Also, Luka's post work has effectively doubled this year. More than 15% of his field goal attempts or possessions rather are coming in the post. He is shooting a ridiculous 63.5% as I record this on post ups. I would push back against the notion that helps conserve energy, just because like it could be more physical in the post depending on who's defending you. I know he's capitalizing on a lot of mismatches at times, and I can confess I did not go back and watch every post up to see how physical it was, but that is like playing in the post can be super taxing by itself. And that's even without, his foul rate on post-ups, by the way, is like kind of high, 22.7%. He's drawing a shooting foul. So he's getting to the free throw line 25% of the time when he's posting up. That is a massive number. And you're taking some form of contact there. So in addition to the physicality that comes with being in the post anyway, he's fourth in post-ups per game in the league right now, ahead of Anthony Davis and Jokic, ahead of Alperen Şengün, behind Zion, Joel Embiid, and Yusuf Nurkic are the only three players in front of him. He has the highest free throw frequency of all these players. He has the same free throw frequency as Jonas Valanciunas, who is, I think, seventh in post-ups per game, and he gets to the line 25% of the time there. But when you look at high-volume post-up users, Miles Turner's sample size is not big enough to really count him here. Only Jonas Valanciunas gets to the line as often for anyone who's averaging 3 or more post-ups per game right now. And then after that, you get into Pascal Siakam and Karl Anthony. Pascal Siakam's right there. Look, even if we drop down the filter, I'm doing this live because I was curious to see his free throw frequency. It's not something I thought of before. Looking at anyone who's averaging even 2 post-ups per game, only Jonas Valanciunas matches Luka's free throw frequency. And then you get below that, Julius Randle is a little bit ahead. So he is taking some bruisings. And then there's just the context of his total usage in general. This is someone who his usage rate, it changed, it dropped a little bit. It's at 38.3%. That is still one of the 7 highest marks in NBA history. And what I think is more interesting than even just the usage rate is like, hey, let's look at how responsible he is for setting up the rest of the Mavs offense. His assist rate is in the mid 40s right now. Like that's the 7th highest assist percentage he has right now for anyone with a usage rate over 30. And when you're getting into like the even higher usage rates, he's going to separate himself further. He's just carrying this monstrous burden. And it's historically, I hope people are still tuned into this because these are the numbers that sort of blew my mind. It's an historically heavy usage rate. So right now, 66.7% roughly of the Mavs total offense is generated by Luka. And what I mean by that is he has scored or assisted on 66.7% of the Mavs' total points as I record this. It is not factoring in their loss to the Magic. So I want to make that clear. 66.7%. Let's go back and compare that to the 2 highest usage rates in NBA history, coming from Russell Westbrook at 41.7 in 2016-2017, and then James Harden, 40.5 usage rate in 2018-2019. Let's start with Russ. He accounted for 49% of OKC's total offense when you look at points scored and points generated off assists. James Harden, he accounted for about 45.5% of the Rockets' total offense when looking at, again, his points scored and then points generated off assists. Is this number by Luka sustainable all season? I would say no. It's going to come down. I would argue that it was pulled back after the Magic loss as well. That being said, if it's anywhere near this, we're talking over 50%. That is absolutely monstrous. And this is someone you need. Like, if we're scaling this out over the entire season, you need him to play in 82 games almost to keep pace with everybody. And it's not like he's not playing minutes. I mean, he's at over 36 minutes per game. I don't care how slow you're playing, how good a shape you're in, how young you are. Yeah, he's 23. But again, he is taking his licks when he has the ball in his hand. And it's also just, this is a 5th season of his career. So while this isn't the James Harden trajectory where it's, all right, his true shooting percentage in the playoffs is noticeably lower than his true shooting percentage in the regular season. Luka's, for the record, in the playoffs, he has a higher true shooting percentage in the regular season. It's so early into his career, and you're just continuing to tax him more and more and more. And it's wild to really just think about. And so this is just the other thing to sort of look at. His time of possession this season, 10.2 minutes per game. NBA tracking data that is available on NBA.com. I'm sure teams have, and maybe even some writers, if they have Second Spectrum, like the actual subscription to it. I'm sure they could go back even further, but it goes back to 2013, 2014. That is the highest single season mark right now, 10.2 minutes as a time of possession. And last year, Luka has led this category in each of the past 3 seasons. He was tied with Trae Young in 2020, 2021. But last year, he owned the title outright at 9.3 minutes, whereas time of possession. James Harden never even hit this level of over 10 minutes at his highest usage points. Ditto for Russell Westbrook. They're putting the ball in his hands a lot, and that's just extra time. Like that, it's extra energy. I don't care what, like he's not sitting the entire time just dribbling at a standstill. He's surveying, like it's mentally exhausting, even if you want to go there. He's surveying the defense, targeting mismatches, going over ball screens. Like this is taxing work. And this is going to be the more bonkers thing here. As of right now, 89.9% of Luka's field goals have gone unassisted. It's actually over 90% when you look at just 3-pointers. I think it's over 91%. But 89.9% of Luka's field goals have gone unassisted. NBA tracking data on this goes back all the way to 1996-97. There is not a player who has averaged 15 minutes per game and made at least 5 appearances. These are not cherry pick stacked. 15 minutes per game, whatever, and then a minimum of 5 appearances. That was just to filter out like there was some noise in this. Since 1996, 1997, no other player has even come close to having the percentage of their field goals go unassisted to this degree. 89.9%. The second highest, and look, I'm going to tell you right now, it's possible that I made a mistake because I'm going through decades worth of data here, and it was for, this mailbag type of question. I'm not writing an article on this. Steve Nash in 2009, 2010, 88.8% of his field goals went unassisted that year. I know you go back. It's just Steve Nash never just, even when he was winning MVPs, that's just not what struck me as that number is just, it really was funny. And by the way, if anyone cares, Tyler Ulis led the league in this category one year, and it was 2016, 2017 with 84.2%. But regardless, 89.9% of Luka's field goals are going unassisted. That is the highest mark in the NBA since at least 96, 97. And when I'm looking at the trends and the league leaders were in like the 70th percentiles or 73% or low 70s, I'd hazard you're going to go further back, and this could be like the largest mark in NBA history. I'm not too familiar with like the super nuance historically of the game. So if you went back decades to maybe the 70s and 60s, I don't know if any of those would be higher. But this could literally be the most exhaustingly high usage season that we've ever seen coming from Luka at this moment. And just to underscore this, let's go back to that Russ season where he had the highest usage rate in NBA history. 81.2% of his baskets went unassisted. That's a lot. It's also a lot lower than Luka right now. Harden, 2018, 2019, 87% of his shots went unassisted. That's really high. It's one of the highest marks since 1996, 97. It's still lower than Luka's. And I would argue that this heliocentric shift has its limitations where, it'll get you 50 wins in the regular season, maybe, but you need to have other options in the playoffs. I don't know if a healthy Christian Wood, a healthy Spencer Dinwiddie, a healthy Tim Hardaway Jr. count as that for this team. In the playoffs, I would argue Dinwiddie or Christian Wood. I mean, that's not really a hot take. They're your best bet. I don't know if either of them are like this playoff proofing option. And you also run into some issues with Christian Wood specifically. You're making a lot of defensive concessions when you're playing him with Luka then. So can you run that in crunch time? And also, for a big man, he does do this, but like you probably want more of an outside in attacker, which would be Spencer Dinwiddie there. Can he be that guy? And my issue is will he even get the chance at this point because of how high usage Luka is? I want to make this clear. This is not an insult to Luka Doncic, who is an incredible basketball player. And the fact he's able to do the things that he's able to do on the volume, shoot 1,000,000,000% from mid-range, get to the foul line on 25% of his post-ups, average 1.27 points per post-up possession. 1.27 points per post-up possession. We kind of romanticize post-ups like, oh yeah, like, Anthony Davis has been really good or let's say Jokic, he's really good in the post. Yeah, he averages fewer than 1 point per possession in the post. 1.27 points per possession is like an actual offensive rating that teams would kill for, because the average offensive rating is 1.12 points right now, 1.13, however you want to frame it. Luka's just beating that in the post. The dude is incredible. I just think he's overtaxed, and you absolutely do run the risk of burnout if you continue down this path with him. I don't know what their pathway is to getting somebody else. They can put all their distant firsts on the table with, disregard the one they owe the Knicks in 2023. They don't really have blue chip prospects or even players on their roster that are going to entice a ton of teams as a centerpiece. Yeah, Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi Kleber are interesting. Christian Wood is interesting. Spencer Dinwiddie at this point is really interesting. Josh Green has perked up. Frank Ntilikina is a future perennial MVP. Like, these aren't guys that are going to be the centerpiece of a blockbuster trade. You would have to rest on the picks, and it's who becomes available. I think the name you would look at and you would need to want to go to Dallas is, I'm thinking really high end. I think Luka's so good that we can have the talk about, well, if you get someone like Jalen Brunson, who's like the 54th to 75th best player in the NBA, that could absolutely work for you. And that's not a shot. Again, I have taken shots at the Mavericks for letting Jalen Brunson go, or at least botching that whole issue. That's not really, that's part of the problem here, why he's so high usage this season, but I'm not saying that they would have been way better off title contenders. We've seen Jalen Brunson's own limitations in the playoffs. I think you want someone a little bit bigger than him to be not just your number one option, but your second option. And so what I immediately think of, like, we got to go high end here. And Bradley Beal's a no trade clause in Washington. The Wizards are floundering, bottom 10 offense and defense. They're on the fast track to nowheresville, in my opinion. If he wants out or the team wants to start over, is Dallas on his list because he has the no trade clause. And so it's not even Dallas has to beat the best offer out there. There could be a team, I don't know who it is, maybe it's Memphis. Let's just say it's Memphis that actually beats their offer. But if Bradley Beal doesn't want to go to Memphis, that can work out in Dallas's favor. That's the name you have to be targeting. Maybe Zach LaVine, but there's just weird stuff going on with his knee right now. And I can't really get a feel for where the Bulls are headed. I would almost argue, I want to make it clear, I have zero feel for the Bulls, but they just played the Pelicans really tightly, and like they're hovering around 500 with a positive point differential per 100 possessions, and their defense is still in the top 7, and yet their offense is hovering close to the bottom 10. But the Zach LaVine knee stuff is just absolutely weird. And then just after that, I can't really see who's going to become available. Like if LaMelo Ball eventually wants out of Charlotte, but we know how these rookie extension things work out there. So, and there's not another obvious opportunity here. If the Clippers wanted to blow it up and Paul George, but I can tell you right now that the Mavs won't have the best offer. He doesn't have a no trade clause. Even if he doesn't guarantee that he's going to go somewhere, Dallas can't get that. So they need a very specific instance. Maybe it's a matter of Jimmy Butler. Would he want to go to Dallas? If things fall off the rails in Miami, he has 3 years and like 140 plus million left on his deal. It's his age 30. He's at age 33 right now. That might scare some teams away. Perhaps it wouldn't Dallas. They could want, if he wants to go there, again, he will have a say just because of superstars with that clout always do. But in this case, you also want a superstar who in essence, it's like almost prohibitive. Their contract's a little prohibitive because of how old they are. And I think there'd be a lot of teams, like let's look at a Memphis. And Jimmy Butler's not a perfect fit next to John Moran anyway, but a Memphis would be more reticent to take on that deal, I would think, than certain other teams would, Dallas being one of them. Maybe it's, look, Kevin Durant, he could probably pick where he wants to go, even though he has 3 years left on his deal too. An NBA executive theorized to Sam Amick at The Athletic that they must have, they basically implied, that to get Kevin Durant to come back at all this season, they basically said, hey, we won't send you to New Orleans. We won't send you to Indiana if we trade you, but come back and we'll trade you where you want to go if everything implodes. Who knows if that's like an option? I would argue that, again, there would still be teams like the Nets could go back on that. The Mavs can be outbid is my point, but I think you have to find someone, and it's not a matter of waiting anymore. Like, you've already given Luka the super max because he deserves it. And you just look, I don't know where you want to put him in the MVP discussion right now. A lot of people have him 1. Some people have him 2, 3. He's easily in the top 5. I think he's probably easily in the top 3 at this point. he's one of the 3 to 5 best players in basketball. I haven't ranked this out right now, and I'm not going to get into that hot take, but like there are 4 locks in the top 5 for me at the moment. Maybe 5 if you include KD, but I'm looking at Luka, Giannis, Jokic, and Steph. Like those 4 are absolutely top 5 players right now for me. Your window is now if you're Dallas. And this is not about calling out the Mavericks for fucking up their offseason or messing up part of Luka's prime, but I absolutely am of the belief that there are inherent limitations to the way that he's playing, especially because it's such an historical anomaly at this point. And I would worry about him wearing down. Again, he's young. He's in fantastic shape this year. And he's playing fantastic basketball. We are in November. And so while some of these numbers can scale back, they're not all going to scale back. At this point, it looks like he's going to comfortably be responsible for over 50% of the Mavs offense. That is a monstrous number. We're talking about 90% of his field goals going unassisted. And if he has to last the entire season, this isn't Shai Gilgeous-Alexander circa, was it 2020, 2021, or 2021, 2022, however, he didn't play in as many games. Like this is a Luka who, if he's not playing in that many games, you're not going to make the playoffs anyway. You need to figure out a way. And I just went through some names, but the Mavs' best package is 25, 27, and 29 picks. You can give up swaps in 24, 26, and 28 then, and everything would technically have to be conditional because of the pick you go to New York, but it's top 10 protected. It's going to convey, so you don't have to worry about that. And I'm not saying you need to throw all that for at just anyone or even for anyone, depending on who's available. But like you need either a co-star or at least someone you look at and say, we're comfortable with him being our bare minimum number 2, given how good Luka is. And just right now, between Christian Wood and Spencer Dinwiddie, I think that you're probably a little too low end there. And that's not an insult to, I mean, Christian Wood's been fantastic. Spencer Dinwiddie has shot the ball a lot better since coming to Dallas than I would have expected. And when you're kind of looking for middle end options here, yeah, I could throw out like something like an Eric Gordon might be a nice stopgap. And you have the salary filler to get him, and he probably doesn't cost you a first round pick. What are we doing there in the end, though? That's a move. If you can get him without giving up a first, especially, that should absolutely be done. Although the money you're sending out is bad money, so maybe it would cost you a first. That's also why you don't do a deal like that, because the first you're sending out is in 2025. And if you're sending out a first, it needs to be for a certifiable, let's say B+ player, at least to A-. You're not going to get like an AA+. I mean, Luka's AA+. So that's where I land on Luka. I am concerned. I think he's fantastic. And if he's as close since, I guess like James Harden, like the prime era James Harden in Houston pre-CP3, he's as close. Like he is as close to the NBA comes to just having this walking one-man 50-win contender. But I'm very much of the mind that right now, especially in a league with so much parity, in a Western Conference where the Blazers and the Jazz are off to scorching hot starts and the Spurs are friskier than expected, you can't have a one-man contender. And so this is the Mavs might be really good. They're top 10 in offense and defense after their loss to the Magic, but they're not elite, and that's through no fault of Luka's, unless you think he can't play a different way. I disagree. I think that he can. We've seen him do so many different things on the ball, but it's fair to be concerned, and I would say that should be the expectation right now. You can let me know what you think in the comments or @ on Twitter.